Hi, everybody. I'm Angela O'Neill from Outrageous 8 Records, and I have with me now Mr. Rocky Davis. Rocky, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, happy to be here.
Is the Friday before May Day. May Day, which is the release of Paul Litteral's record, is coming out May 1st worldwide. And we're incredibly happy and with so many emotions: happy, relieved, pleased, inspired, by all the people who helped and contributed to this getting done. It's not a single person effort. Here it is. We made these guys right here. It is amazing. Yay! We have matching sets. And Rocky and I were just talking about before we came on that Rocky we've listened to the record before, but just to freshen his thoughts on it, he just listened to it. Having just listened to it, and it's kind of at the front of your mind, what were your thoughts as you listened?
Well, it was a number one, an amazing amount of content, is all I can say. That took a lot of coordination to do, and I can't believe even that I played on all of the songs.
Yeah, it's so funny that you should say that as the first thing, because I was just talking to a rapper friend of mine who also is the same position that everybody in music is in, which is everybody loves streaming his stuff, but they're very unlikely to go to his website to pay the 25 cents for the song. And he was saying what's happening now is people are releasing, 3 songs or a single every 6 months or something. To have a record that has, is it 10 pieces on it that are all orchestrated, arranged, and played and all that stuff. It is actually kind of a thing. And yes, you did, from our very first remote recordings and doing everything shut down in COVID, you have been a huge contributor to this. So let me say first and foremost, thank you. Thank you for everything you contributed. Thank you for being willing, no matter Bill Bodine and I would call you in the middle of the night and say, hey, do you mind doing a MIDI for blah blah? And you were like, that might work. So what were your impressions just having re-listened?
That they're so varied, and that my role on them varied from song to song. But the point, though, is that it really came out great, and Paul is featured well all through it, and the singers are all featured well. It's just the conception of the thing is great too. I
Yeah.
mean, how to feature him and how to keep it diverse in in appeal. The songs are like from different eras and different not genres, but
Kind of styles. Yeah. Yeah. And the reason it's called Legacy, actually, is because each tune, like Hard Times, for an example, was the one that the Uptown Horns, they had a Tuesday night jam in New York at a club for years. And they opened the show every single night with Hard Times.
okay.
And so each tune has a little significance for Paul. So it is literally the length of his musical experience in one record. So yeah, okay. So yes, that they're so eclectic is definitely a thing.
There you go. I'm not sure what else I can say.
Okay. So one of the interesting things that people may not know about this record, and I think people are kind of mystified about the whole thing. We started out kind of as a band, just playing out live and recording a couple records here and there. One day, when we had just completed recording the exterior recording process for Light at the End of the Tunnel, Paul approached me. I don't know if you even know this story, Rocky, and said, I've always had in the back of my mind the idea to do a solo record because I have played on, my discography goes from, David Sanborn to Billy Joel to James Brown. And because of that, I feel like I have a lot of different styles that I'd like to honor with a record. And I said, I don't really Yes, I mean, yes, you're amazing. Yes, I would like to honor that too. And so we just started talking about it, and it does seem impossible. It seemed impossible to me when I started the project. As we went along, I was just telling Craig there were a lot of cases, a lot of times during the course of it, we would get 2, 3 tunes in, and I would think, "Oh my God, we're never gonna finish this thing."
Uh-huh.
It's never. I thought that not once, not twice, many times during the course of this. And it's partly because of people like you who I could call and say, okay, I don't know what we're doing next, but here's what this next tiny baby step is. Can we help? I mean, thanks to Bill Bodine in
Sure.
his studio, and the fact that he and Chill are so sophisticated, sort of technologically, we were able to move forward, even though all of us could not get together
Right.
at the beginning of it. I think "I Can't Make You Love Me" was the very first tune that we recorded,
Right.
and I think that you did that arrangement.
No, I
Is that Bill's?
still wrote it out. What I did was kind of on my own, and I did record it here, uh, but it was from something he wrote out. So technically, he wrote, I would say he did the arrangement. And after I was done, I didn't do anything else on it. So
Yeah, that particular tune, yeah. And tell us a little bit, because obviously people wouldn't necessarily know that you and then Bill Bodine, aside from Outrageous Eight Records and our octet group and Paul, you and Bill Bodine have a long time relationship. I bet people would love to know. Bill tells a great story about you guys first meeting. What would you say? How would you characterize your relationship with Bill Bodine?
well, it's been a long-lived relationship. I wouldn't say I've kept super close to him over those years, but nonetheless, they have spanned nearly 50 years.
Wow, that's
And so
tremendous.
I met him shortly after he came out to California from Ohio,
Hmm.
and we both auditioned for the same band that was being that the recently late drummer Ralph Humphrey was part of putting together.
Hmm.
And we met at a in a garage in Malibu, and I just was there, and he just said, I'm Bodine, the bass player," and I reached across and I shook his hand, and so we both entered that band situation at the same time, and he was the bass player. He literally put that as part of his name. I'm Bodine, the bass player.
Right.
And little by little, I learned that he had been a trumpet player in college, and then for health reasons, I guess, and whatever other reasons, he changed to bass. And then more recently, he's first he thought he was retiring from bass, and instead, he's actually come back as a trumpet player and a bass player.
Yeah.
I know he's playing both on the album. Uh,
Yes. Yes, he sure is.
yeah, but
Yeah, I dragged him out of retirement. Me personally, I could take personal responsibility for that. Bill Bodine, I think I told this story a little while ago. Was in a Woody James big band with me, and I was trying to go and sing with that band. And long story short is that I didn't have Woody James was not fond of carrying his phone or answering his phone. I did not have directions, and I think I Facebook messaged Bill Bodine in a panic. I mean, I was blubbering in my car. I was, "Oh God, I'm going to be late. It's terrible. Everybody's going to be waiting for me." I hate being late. I hate it. It's the only thing that truly makes me panic. And I messaged him, and he was like, "Hey, no problem." Walked out to the street, was like, "Hey, we're right here." Was so kind to me. And by the way, I had only met him maybe once or twice at different big bands, but like you say, very casually. And he really had no reason to be kind. And after that, I was so grateful for him for that moment of random kindness. And when we started trying to put this record together, I knew that he and Paul were very close, and being trumpet players together in a ton of bands, we talked about how helpful it would really be to have another trumpet player be able to give us input as we went along. And that did actually, at a lot of points during the course of making this record, I think it was very helpful to kind of have someone who knew the mechanics of trumpet playing be able to give Paul input as we were doing the record. But
the perfect guy, coming from both the production background, the rhythm section background, and the trumpet background. Bill is, ideal,
Yeah.
and jazz background. Yeah.
Yeah. And you guys actually gig together, so in that same band, for many years afterwards, or how did that go from there?
We played it in some other bands. That particular band project was a more like an originals recording project. It's hard to, I can't describe it beyond that. And I don't think we ever played a single gig.
Oh, you're kidding.
It eventually led to, I mean, then the personnel changed and different people came in, and a guy came in on bass, and then he moved to guitar, and another bass player came in, and so, I mean, and that was, and then there were various lead singers who came. The point though is that, yeah, the last thing we did finally was a recording. The producer got a thing, and we did the song we had been working on from the first day that Bill was there, probably, that for the JBL company, and they gave us a set of speakers, and I'm looking at them right now.
Oh, you're kidding. Oh, that's the greatest.
Yeah,
Um,
but then we did play in some other jazz groups.
yeah.
A group called Pacific Ocean. We played at the Baked Potato for a year. I'm pretty sure he was playing in the.
Wow.
And of course he did a lot of other gigs, Olivia Newton-John, and
Yeah. And Cher, he toured with Cher as well, right?
I don't know all of them. I remember Olivia Newton-John, and oh shoot, maybe Melissa Manchester. I don't know. I might be.
Yes, I think you're right. And I think Joan Armatrading is another
Yes,
one, if I'm
yes.
saying her name right. I mean, there's a lot. He's an incredible bass player. Also, so the audience knows, the great part is this weird kind of music family that we've developed. Bill was playing bass with us Wednesday night with the octet. It's amazing to have such talented musicians all kind of partaking in this kind of give and take that we do with rehearsals and gigs and recording. It really, for me anyway, it gives me hope that the music industry is actually still kind of moving along, maybe at a slower pace and in a different way. It's certainly developing new stuff as we go along. And speaking of that, Rocky, tell us a little bit about your musical background, just because people may not know. Were you always a piano player?
Uh, I would always a piano player. Sure, I did play piano from a very young age. I took piano lessons, and then in about fourth grade, I also started playing in school on clarinet, and I played clarinet and later bass clarinet starting in like ninth grade. I played that all through high school and at UCLA initially.
Our alma mater. Go Bruins. Anyway.
Right. And I continued to play bass clarinet in the wind ensemble, and yeah, actually in the orchestra. So, but anyway, so that was the other thing. But I was from about ninth grade on, I was also writing my own arrangements and such, and I put together little combos. And so my interest was more in that, I would say, in the jazz and on piano. I never really performed other than in those ensembles I mentioned,
Right.
on clarinet or bass clarinet. And so,
Do you think that if you had to pick a favorite, I know it's like, choosing which kid you like best, but if you had to pick a favorite between like, piano, wind instruments, and arranging, do you find one or the other of them more kind of inspirational than the other?
I'm sorry, dead space.
Doesn't matter. No, I was just saying, do you think that you find like arranging more or the same kind of inspiration as keyboard playing, or
They're
they're
equally, they're
equal?
equally important to me, probably. I
Yeah.
like uh, the idea of structuring something, and then I also like the element of then playing it and influencing the end product with my playing. So,
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah, I can totally see that. Now, I find when you do arrange stuff for the Outrageous Eight, you have actually I would call a very distinct sound as an arranger. And I actually have wondered often if you have any particular influences who you liked as an arranger, or you've just kind of, over the years, if you started in ninth grade, you've been arranging for a long time. Have you kind of just developed that sound your own self, or did you find someone, some prior arranger kind of inspirational, any of that stuff?
Uh, you know, I don't know. I don't know who uh, influenced me, if I can say that, as an arranger. Uh, I think I liked some of the more like subtly interesting, like sort of Klaus Ogerman or um, the or something not after Nelson Riddle, who I also liked, uh,
Right.
but I didn't want to arrange that way usually, and I always found it interesting to um, if not completely restructure things, to reharmonize them a little or a lot, and actually or re-envision. Although we did once a concert, here's a good one, while I was at UCLA, and we were playing at some event that was actually at USC. And the composer David Raxon, who I knew from UCLA, who taught in both places, was there at this event, an evening
Mm-hmm.
dinner honoring some people, I guess.
Yeah.
I'd done some arrangements of some rather well-known songs from, I think, movies of the people who were being honored, let's say, but they were I don't know, like half feel rock, funk or something, and like I can't even think of what it is. But the point, well, though, was it was pretty different.
Yeah.
And, I ran into David Raxon afterwards, and he was saying, "Oh, nice job." I said, "Oh yeah, it was good." He says, "You know, people like to hear songs the way they know them." And so I took that not as a terrible indictment, but just something to be aware of.
Yeah.
So then if I'm from then on, maybe I don't know what, but I nonetheless remember that. If I'm
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, like for the Outrageous Eight,
Yeah.
I often think um, I don't want to confuse I don't want to confuse Angela or whoever, the
Yeah.
whoever the lead singer is. Um, but sometimes certain chord progressions will make more of a statement to my ear. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
change it like that. And then uh, beyond that, orchestrationally, I think it's, especially in a small group, it's the players like to have something to do. So you have to be mindful of that. In the trumpet part, you don't want to wear him out, because I was also once told an arrangement I had done at a recording session. It got all done, and then this famous trumpet player came up and yelled at me and said, "You don't
Oh.
write when it doesn't have any rest." Like that. I thought,
Oh.
okay, so, he's passed away, so
Good
Uh,
to know, though. Good to
yeah,
know
I
for
know.
future.
It's not, it's all useful.
Yeah.
I take it all with as it was intended, which I get what how it was intended. But
Right.
the uh, so cautious for each person, but it's nice to give them something to do that isn't just a whole note in the middle of a chord. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, and in the smaller group, it's possible to do that because you're not just the third trombone and a four trombone chord or something.
Right. Right. Yeah, the
Anyway,
voicings, what the guys talk about a lot in big band arrangements. I can certainly speak for the Outrageous Eight arrangements that you do are just, it's just unbelievable. Paul and I were actually talking about what a talented arranger you are, and we're lucky enough to have Harry Smallenberg as well in that group. It's just really interesting. Like the next tune that we're actually going to release as a single as this record comes out on Monday is a tune called "Do It Again," which is a Steely Dan tune. You really did a very interesting interpretation of this tune, and I think it must be fun in a way. I'm not saying this in a critical way from a vocalist standpoint, but it must be fun kind of to not have a vocalist, so you don't have to worry about that in a way. And in this one, you just kind of, the turnaround at the end of this is so much fun that the horns have. I just love that part of it. Um, When you listen to it again today, what do you think of "Do It Again"? I love it. It makes me want to get up and dance. It's so amazing. What do you think listening to it today?
Well, let me preface this with oftentimes, if I'm doing it just an arrangement of a song, it's either by request. I want to do it pretty much like the original, and think, okay, that's one type of assignment, or
Hmm.
go with it. I just want to do the song, but you go. I want the rocky version of it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's completely different. Then I've got to start, structuring stuff. In this case, it was like a compromise because Paul had some ideas and he knew he wanted to do the song, number one.
Yeah.
And he said, I wanted to have the Crusaders orchestration, at least in terms of the three horn, I guess,
Right.
approach to the winds, and and then he also had an idea of a song he knew that was by Government Mule. I just had to look that up right before.
All right. Do a little research on that one. Yeah.
What it was, and then and so integrating that in, plus, and then even after I was going, he said, and plus, let's try to get some of Walter Becker's guitar solo in there.
Right.
So in the course of the instrumental part, I'd been making up, parts that they'd be playing, and then I just said, okay. Then I transcribed about 4 bars of Walter Becker's guitar solo, and got that in, and it was be played in unison. And then I thought, he's going da 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 da. It's all 16th notes, upbeat like that, but near the end he goes da 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 da. Goes into triplets. And
Yeah.
well, that would be cool if I had the drum part suddenly go into Afro-Cuban for 1 bar.
Oh, it's so cool, man. I love that part. And of course, you remember when we were in the session on that and Tony played it down, like you guys played the rhythm section down a couple times. And Tony Pia, I don't know if everybody knows who Tony Pia is, but Tony Pia is a very well known drummer. I think toured with the Doobie Brothers for 10 or so years. Is really, is just an amazingly accomplished drummer. And he kind of stopped at the end and he looked at you and he looked at me. He goes, hey, can we take it? And he never does anything a second time. He's like, can we take it from like 60 out? And I was like, yeah, I heard that too, Tony. And he did it 2 or 3 times. Well, he ran it actually a second time. Normally we do kind of like we're one take wonders with Paul's record. Because it was really complicated and he just nailed it. All of that towards the break on out just sounds amazing on the record. So Greg Kupka is an amazing musician, an amazing engineer, and he got everything, he aligned those pieces just perfectly, and it sounds so, it really hits the rhythm perfectly, and it still has a groove. There's a mechanicalness that you can get to some mixing, but I think because Greg Kupka is a musician himself, I think he really captured the groove really well, and that is an amazing talent. So yeah, I mean, when I listened to this record the very first time, here it is here. I actually, that was my favorite tune on the record. And first of all, Paul plays beautifully, and he came up with that sound with Greg at the beginning there, kind of off the cuff, and it sounds badass. And everybody played. I mean, Craig Kupka played so incredibly well. Colin kicked on it. Bill Bodine's part is killer on there, and he nailed it. And yours, I mean, I think we did 2 takes of you, and you also nailed it. So, I mean, that was a great session. And when we played it down afterwards, I was like, that is some really cool groove. And then, if you remember, it took us a second. As this record I keep telling people, I don't want people to get the impression that this was in any way easy. I think when people make projects like this sound like it was no effort, just came together effortlessly. I think for people who are just coming into the industry and music to hear that, then they won't try. this was a very effortful experience. It had many stops and starts, and actually, right after we did the main tracks on "Do It Again," there was another big shutdown, if you remember,
Yeah.
and it I do. And there was like between that and getting all the horns aligned and tuned and stuff, and us getting the guitar track, there was like a yawning
Yeah.
pause. I thought we would never be able to record that guitar track. And Paul was good friends with Ken Rosser, and he called him up and said, "Can you do Friday or whatever?" I thought, "Oh my God, we're gonna get that guitar lick in! I'm thrilled!" And it came out so well. It fits perfectly into the rest of what you designed for that, and it's just really good. I mean, we're in the process. I don't know if you know this or not. Paul may have told you. We're in the process of doing like a little music video for this tune, and so I'm getting the chance to really listen to it again. And it's great. I mean, I know. I think that you did. Did you do another you? I'm trying to remember which ones you did the other arrangements on.
I have a feeling I did. Well, I know I did that other one, the Billy Cobham one. That's the last one. Uh,
Moon 8 made of green cheese.
right.
Yes, you did do that one.
Yeah. I don't know whether I mean I thought I had an influence on I Can't Make You Love Me, but I didn't I wouldn't call myself the arranger.
Yeah.
And the other ones, no. So
Okay. And but you played I think you played keyboard. I think you played piano on everything.
yeah.
I don't think we had any other piano player but you, and we feel very lucky to say that. Um, because the playing is amazing. I love the playing actually on "There Will Never Be Another You." Now, interestingly enough, that and "Hard Times," "Accentuate the Positive," and "Making Whoopee," again in the auspices of telling people the real truth of how things go down. We did two of them almost entirely in Bill's small home studio, which is a vocal studio. And then we went to Michael Rosen's studio out in Tarzana, and we cut three more of them there. And thank you, Michael Rosen, for all that he does to make these projects go off. And then because we needed a bigger room, we ended up going to Kupka Studios in Glendale to do some of the horn pieces and have Greg Kupka mix and engineer over there. It was a patchwork. It was a quilt.
Well,
Uh,
we also did some tracking there, some rhythm sections. The thing with
yes,
Satoshi, I know, was there.
yes.
And
Uh,
the
did
Do It Again, of course, was there.
Yes, I think we did five tunes at Kupka Studios. So I
Mhm.
think it's 5 and 5 or 6 and 5 or 6 and 4. Um, but we were just, I feel lucky to get to the finish line and to have something to hold in my hand.
Mhm.
Uh, but also, I think it's important for people to understand that, once we got everything recorded, of course, that's, 20% of the work, sadly. There is, if you don't already have the artwork going and going through the process, remembering that a bunch of people collaborate on stuff. You have to design stuff, and people may or may not know that I work in the design world in my other life as a prop master. And as a prop master, you design graphics and stuff, and so I'm uh I'm actually really used to the concept of collaboration, in the sense that I actually am happy to come up with something like Ernie Gilbert actually designed this illustration, but then my friend Kevin Eagland, who's a graphic designer, designed the rest of the CD, which I think is really cool. I love the look of it. I love that color that golden color we finally came up with. Um, and
Neat. I think it's really fantastic. I actually was wondering, I didn't actually see their names on here, the designers. So that's it's
they're
lovely.
at the very special thanks.
Uh,
Michael Rosen's on there, and Kevin Eagland's on there,
oh
and
yeah,
Ernie's on there. Yeah,
yeah,
um,
got it. Thank you.
but and Ellie's on there. If you remember Bill Bodine's and Beth's little
Oh,
doggy who was in the studio with us. Um, so yeah, I'm from there on out. It becomes people giving input, and that's an interesting thing as a concept. I think the whole idea of collaboration. What do you think of that word as it relates to music? I mean, certainly that's something as an arranger, you bring things into different bands, different singers, different kinds of situations, and then people give you input. How do you, as an arranger, I mean, you obviously have had uh, something in your head. You're hearing something in your head when you do an arrangement. And I'm sure that's not always what it, well, maybe not. I'm asking if are you hearing something in your head when you do an arrangement?
Right
Question.
now, like a ringing in my ears kind of thing.
Is it tinnitus? Do you need to see it? Do
As
you
a
need to
matter
see
of
it?
fact, I just read yesterday, but so but you know, sorry, what was your
So the question, I started to see it as a
operation?
statement, and then I rephrased it as a question. So on the concept of collaboration in general, which is kind of, I started by, when you're doing artwork, I get input from the artist, from the other producers, from everybody, and then you have to be able to make that an amalgamation of ideas where
Right.
everybody ends up happy, which is actually, if you think about, which I try not to think about it too much, if you think about that, it's almost impossible, right? To make
Well,
everybody happy.
I think it's I now at least am like at a at the nexus point where I have what I think people want, what they're going to want to have the end product be, I suppose, and then thus what I am going to have to do to make that happen. So
Right.
that comes down to me. Now I'm going to do what I think is going to allow that, and then uh, if I'm still involved, like playing, like in Outrageous Eight, then I continue to impact it. But if it were a deal where I'm just you know giving it to somebody else, then it goes away, and I don't. Um Kind of like my playing on this album, where
Mm-hmm.
it's like it either was my arrangement or I'm there in the studio, I'm doing this, we work it all out, that's collaboration there, but I'm still, then everything else is going to be added on in whatever form, mixing, and it's going to be packaged like this, and I'm not in charge of that. So when I try to be in charge of the part that I'm in charge of,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and then not only not be in charge of the part I'm not in charge of, but not worry about the part I'm not in charge of.
Yeah.
That's really definitely a possibility for me to
Yeah.
be constantly worried about.
Yeah. So that's a good note for people who might be just kind of coming into the music industry. Is there are those times when you kind of like send the product away and you don't have any opportunity or desire or requirement to collaborate. And then there's other things like an ongoing collaboration, like our band. Where you bring in an arrangement, and then I was just telling Paul last night, actually, or night before last, that it's amazing. The more I work with your arrangements, the more I start to hear where you're kind of very subtly not directing, but kind of leading the vocal, especially rhythmically. And I was really starting to hear
When I'm playing, what is doing that, or the arrangement itself is
the
doing
arrangement itself.
it? Okay.
Like accentuate the positive is what made me think about it the most. In terms of the feel of the rhythm, I think I told you I had such a hard time grasping how you wanted the rhythm.
My arrangement for you, not the one that's
Yes.
not Paul's.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just in general talking about how collaborations work, and so, but sometimes I know I've given you feedback about stuff about like I can't hear that note, or or what did you want, how do you want me to do this, or I can't do that. I mean, because there are those occasions when it's like, well, yeah, I can't, that's beyond my abilities. um so it is amazing how collaboration works, and of course this record, the Paul Litteral record, was a fascinating collaboration because of your relationship with Bill, and then Bill's and Paul's relationship, Bill's relationship to his son, Craig's relationship with his sons. It was all really fascinating. It was truly like a family affair, doing this project. It was amazing, and I actually. As a person, so coming in kind of late in the relationships, like between you and Bill, I was so so struck by you two and how your long relationship in music was. It was just really fun. I mean, I remember going into the session. I still have a piece of video where you and Bill were kidding around as you were like, when you eat a bagel, some people they like to put a little cream cheese on there. And I was like doing like a Facebook Live or something. You and Bill started joshing around. Those relationships in music, it's it's really funny how they're so very bonding, and it's really fun to be around that when people know each other well and they know how to communicate. And again, I think the longer you know people, the more safe you can feel to communicate kind of clearly, and without people's like feelings getting hurt and their egos being involved. I think it's really amazing, and that I think that happened on this record in general. Sometimes, Paul and Bill and I would have to hash stuff out. And I think the better we got to know each other, the better everything sounded and moved forward. I just could not be happier with the way the sound of this record came out. Um, I'll never forget, Paul and I were sitting in my car listening to the very first CD that was the CD that we would make all the masters from. And Paul, there was a moment of silence after we finished the very last track, and he said, I wouldn't change a thing on
Ah,
this record. And honestly, I could have been like, I'm done. Okay. I mean, as somebody who spent so much time, energy trying to coordinate this record and make sure that I got everything that I could for Paul, I didn't get him everything he wanted, but I got as much as I possibly could. It was a good moment.
would you say that this process is more difficult? My opinion is probably so than, let's say, the backyard projects. It seems like that was by comparison simpler. The light at
Well,
the the tunnel or whatever, the
yeah. I mean, I have to tell the nice folks at home, I am not an experienced music producer. I started producing these records for the Outrageous Eight because people seem to like our music, and they were like, "Where can we listen?" It was really that simple. I just didn't have any other motive other than, oh, people kind of want to hear our music, and for those who don't come to the live show. So fast forward to us recording a Christmas record in the backyard of Al Tims's house, and then another record in the backyard of Al Tims's house.
right.
I didn't have any experience on what recording at a studio was really like as a producer. And I was very nervous about especially the expense, and also that I committed myself to never moving forward if I couldn't pay people session rates for working on this record, because it's hard enough. It's already hard enough to be a session player without it all being, favors. At some point, you just have to pay people for their musicianship, and so there were times when I had to stop moving forward with production on this because I had to earn enough money to pay people what they were worth as musicians on this record. So for me, yes, it made me more anxious about the finances of it than and even though we pay the group, just so the folks out there understand the difference. So when we're recording like in the backyard, we're recording all the instrumentation at the same time, even if they are individualized on mics and kind of separated out. It's more or less a group recording, and of course when we're in the studio, we're doing it in either smaller groups or individual instruments and vocals all separated out. And to me, that seemed like a spread financially that might be unsurmountable. Um, just because, like I say, I recorded a big band once, but the same process, everybody in the same room. And Michael Rosen, that's kind of his specialty, is he kind of does the thing where he's able to separate out instrumentation. The prospect of being able to go into the studio, individually record people, but also spend maybe an inordinate amount of time recording each individual piece seemed kind of like to me. Um, but you know what? I had a little faith, and I would just share with people that I was, worried about about that. And we did record the horns and stuff, some of them together, and I think that helped to kind of expedite those costs a little bit. But yeah, I'm not sure what I would change if I did another studio record like this, where Paul's intent was for it to be a studio record. Um, I was lucky enough, but look at who the players are. Bilbo Dean Studio is a beautiful, highly sophisticated vocal studio in his house with amazing vocal mics and that whole 9 yards. Kupka Studios worked great for us. I mean, we got great sound in that room. That room sounds amazing. We were able to punch in and do all the stuff that you do in a regular session. And Michael Rosen, his room is amazing sounding. So it partly helped that it was part of the Outrageous 8 Records family. Everybody who participated in this was all pushing the rock up the hill the same way, knowing that we were, working with a limited budget and limited time. And so I think everybody pitched in. But to answer your question, yes, I definitely felt anxious about trying to do a studio a record in the studio, I should say, rather than the backyard. And but I will say, being able to correct things, because it was an isolated track on things, that was actually pretty great without any bleed.
Mhm.
So, on Light at the End of the Tunnel, which was the one that we did in the backyard with the Outrageous 8, we had some bleed issues that took a really long time to try and work with. So, being able to
Right.
layer everything, and also just if we had a stopping point, it's like, okay, we got to stop for a couple weeks, and then we'll lay Paul's thing down. That's kind of a luxury of session work.
This album maybe was the easiest one, perhaps, because there weren't sonic issues after we recorded,
Right.
and so but that's the difference between having all of the charts already ready to go, worked out, rehearsed, and all that before you start recording, versus the studio process in which you build layers and experiment as you go a little. That's going to be more time consuming. But
Yeah. But I do think the sonic quality of it is, boy, being able to control some of those things sonically is pretty spectacular. It's expensive, but the reasons that it's expensive is because you really can have it impact them, mixing things and processing things afterwards, making sounds sound different, doing a different piano sound with a really clean track. That stuff is precious. So I think I learned a lot on this record, and I'm like I say, that sonically I think it's pretty sophisticated, this record. So I'm really pleased.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, so anyway, it is Friday, so Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Monday is the day this record, I just threw it up when I threw my hands up. It's over there. Releases and worldwide. And let's see, what other news do we have as far as that goes? So when I say worldwide, what happens is that we work with a company back east that sent the CDs out to all the college and jazz radio stations
Mhm.
over the last few months. And they have been taking a look and listening. And as of last Wednesday, I think it was, right, when we were in rehearsal, the record debuted at number 3 as far as DJs adding it to their spin list for May. That's amazing. We love that. And so, I mean, it's really exciting. May 1st, it'll be released to all those folks. And Paul has been doing some podcasts with Bob Reeves, Mouthpieces. He did a live Facebook yesterday, and kind of talking about the breadth of his work as a trumpet player. He has a incredible discography, obviously, and we are just so grateful, Rocky, that you brought your talent to this project. That we all are part of the kind of Outrageous Eight family, where we our rehearsals with Paul and Bill and you and me. It's great that we got to do this record, but that we also get to play gigs in a kind of a different formation. And I'm just so thankful for your musicianship that you bring and your talent. I can't thank you enough. It's a really great record, and your participation made it just that level greater.
Well, I'm happy to be asked to do it. Glad you liked it. Glad everybody likes it. And uh, you know,
Happy May Day.
May 1st it's gonna be the day worldwide.
Mayday, Mayday.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you again. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day. It's been great chatting with you and kind of catching up and talking about your background and kind of how you got here. I hope that, like I say, for the kids coming up in the music world, I hope that they see this as a hopeful, inspirational time. If anybody has any questions, I'm going to post this up on YouTube, just so you know, Rocky. It'll be up on YouTube within the next hour or two. And I'm sure people will have questions. If they do, I'll text you and say if they have any questions for you. Rocky Davis, everybody, amazing piano player and amazing arranger, and did an amazing job on Paul Litteral's record named Legacy, coming out May 1st on Outrageous 8 Records. Thank you, Rocky. Thank you so much for taking part in this. Have a great weekend ahead, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. There's the record. Bye, everybody. Have a great weekend.